The Islamic Republic of Pakistan is one of the largest Muslim countries in the world. Its strategic location at the crossroads of East and West made the country an indispensable ally to the US against the Soviets in Afghanistan in the 1980s. Then there was global concern about Pakistan as a hotbed for extremism following the September 11th attacks. Pakistan chose to align itself with the US war on terror. It's the only Muslim country with nuclear weapons and has fought 3 wars with India. It's also a major player in the Organization of Islamic Countries, which is meeting for its 13th summit in Istanbul this year. That's where we spoke to Pakistan's most senior diplomat, Sartaj Aziz, who has spearheaded diplomacy with India, Afghanistan and the US. This is TRT World's One-on-One. Sartaj Aziz, thank you for speaking to TRT World. You come at a critical time for Pakistan. It's just over a month since this horrific attack in the city of Lahore, where at least 78 people were killed, an attack claimed by an offshoot of the Pakistani Taliban. Pakistan has been involved in a fight, an existential fight, some would say, against the Pakistani Taliban with Operation Zarb-e-Azm. And now there is an operation that is being carried out in Punjab as well. How is Pakistan's fight against extremism faring?
Well, this is a subject on which Pakistan has suffered a lot, but I think now is making very substantial progress. In the last 14, 15 years since 9/11, 60,000 lives have been lost, including 10,000 security persons. Economic losses go beyond $100 billion. And it has been it has disrupted the entire investment climate. It has caused irreparable damage to Pakistan's economy and its general security situation. So when our government came in 2013, this was priority number 1, how to deal with it. And I think it has been a very, 2.5 years is not a very long time. But what we have achieved in this 2.5 years is remarkable, considering that elsewhere in the world, the specter of terrorism is growing. In Pakistan, it's coming down. And the reason is threefold. First, the military's determination to root out, join this battle. So in the September 2013, 3 months after our government came in, the Karachi operation started. And then in June 2014, the Operation Zarb-e-Azm started in North Waziristan, the last agency where everybody had stuck a foothold. And then in 2015, the National Action Plan. So, and the army has succeeded in eliminating networks, infrastructure, and very large number of terrorists. They escaped from tribal areas to the cities, and now combing operations are going around. The second factor was political consensus. They had pockets of support, but after the school attack in Peshawar in December 2014, national consensus emerged. And so that was the second factor. The third is, and that is the important factor, that the foreign policy dimension of this, of adopting a policy of non-interference and not fighting other people's war and trying to deal with our own security situation first, has emerged as the priority items. So this combination has enabled us to gain an upper hand in this. The number of attacks in last year, 2015, was 50% of what was in 2014. And I'm hoping that 2016 will be even better. They don't have large capacity, big infrastructure anywhere, but they can launch small suicide attacks here and there. And there are, of course, some TTP elements have escaped in Afghanistan from where they operate. But I think on the whole, this battle is moving well, and I'm hopeful that in the coming 1 or 2 years, we'll be able to turn the corner.
Some say that the military's involvement in this has been the game changer. Has the government had to cede space, more space to the military to make this action against extremism possible?
The other way around. Since military knew that its own security and its own challenges threatened, they needed political support to go ahead and do it. And though that's why when Operation Zarb was being launched, the government was afraid of political backlash. So they took 2-3 months to have some dialogue and then decide. And similarly in the next stage. So in this case, there is a strong, what I call, coincidence of interest among the political leadership and the army. So it doesn't amount to thing where there's something only army needs and the civilian has a political. This is a very good area of what I call cooperation and convergence of objectives, because security is as important for the armed forces as it is for the political
So
leadership.
the speculation that the army and the civilian government is not on the same page is baseless.
It's baseless in the sense that there may be, you know, operational issues on who gets priority on what and what kind of, because there are at the margin groups which may be ready to be taken on, and others. You see, you can't take on everybody at the same time. So therefore, my own feeling is that it's a very professionally determined strategy that is now being followed.
What
and
groups
how
can't
to
be taken on?
No, taken on, you see, some people like TTP we are taking on militarily. Other groups require a different approach because their networks are deep and most of their functions are not what you call active in terms of military activity. So you have to have a policy in which you combine the mind winning and generally the de-radicalization policy, so that you do not necessarily, because you see globally and elsewhere India-centered organization is being targeted, but you can't follow that strategy which you follow for TTP. There you have to sort of get them on board in terms of ensuring that they do not undertake any activity that is not permitted by law. And I think gradually, because you see this thing has been growing for so long, it has deep roots, and as I said, 2.5 is not a long time.
This is the accusation that India lays, and some elements in Afghanistan lay against the Pakistani government and the state of Pakistan, that it is selective in its approach to extremism, to extremist groups. And you also raise this issue that you can't treat groups equally, but how are extremist groups good and not so good?
This is a issue which is global. You see, now Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization in Egypt, but other countries take, no, this is not. Similarly, there are many groups which, in terms of, you know, what you, how you deal with them by different countries. So even globally, this kind of a thing is not easy. In Pakistan's case, our law and our policy is very clear, that we are against extremism and use of violence for political power in any case. So nobody is allowed to use it.
In any country?
In any country. So in our case, but those groups which are as a priority basis threatening our security forces and security establishment directly, they require direct military confrontation and elimination. Others require a combined military, political, administrative approach in which you ban. We have done this. Even for India-related organization, we have banned their funding. We have stopped their publicity. We have also tried to impose restrictions on what they can do and what they cannot do. So it is a more. It is not that we are condoning, but it's a more gradual process of tightening the noose.
How is Pakistan's relationship with India right now?
You see, first of all, our one of the key policy sort of parameters which Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif put out the moment he came in is the importance of peaceful neighborhood, because he felt that his top priority is economic development and revival, but that can't happen if you are at loggerheads with your neighbors. So that policy, better relations with Afghanistan, better relations with Iran, better relations with China, better relations with India. So this has been a broad policy parameter.
And the military is on board?
Oh yes, absolutely. Because
completely on board? Because
economic development is also a priority which is jointly shared. I think when Prime Minister Modi came, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif went there, and we were hopeful that this dialogue will start. But unfortunately, after that, the focus on what you call terrorism-related issues became the dominant theme, and India used that to say dialogue cannot happen unless terrorism-related issues are resolved. Our stand was that the composite dialogue, 8 items, one of them is terrorism. So composite dialogue means that we'll discuss all the issues including terrorism, including Kashmir, including water, including other issues. But we cannot just isolate, because terrorism is not something, it is a common problem. We have suffered more from it than India has, and India also India is complaining from Pakistan that its non-state actors are undertaking terrorism. We say Indian state actors, raw agencies involved in terrorism in Balochistan and tribal area and elsewhere. So this is something that we need to discuss across the table along with all other issues. So that was our stand. So India is still, probably this way they want to eliminate or slow down dialogue on other issues. And for us, it's not a negotiable
So
position.
there is no composite dialogue then?
In 9th of December 2015, when the Indian External Affairs Minister came on the Heart of Asia conference, we agreed to resume the composite dialogue. And then 25th December, Mr. Modi came to Lahore to wish Nawaz Sharif happy
But
birthday.
a lot has happened
But
since
then after that, Pathankot happened and the whole thing is again...
the Pathankot terrorist attack.
So now we are waiting to see, because many countries are urging them that when two countries have problems, they have to talk. You can't just stop the dialogue process. So
will Pakistan be willing to continue a dialogue with India on that one-point agenda of terrorism?
No, we will continue that as a part of a composite dialogue.
So unless India includes all outstanding issues, including the issue of Kashmir, Pakistan will not engage in a composite dialogue with
That
India.
has already been accepted in December meeting, and we have a written agreement that we will discuss all outstanding issues. Instead of composite dialogue, it's now called comprehensive dialogue. So the real dialogue will begin when it starts on all issues. Some issues will take longer, some issues can be resolved, and progress can be made as we go along.
But how long can this continue?
Well, if a stalemate can continue for a very long time.
Like it has for the past 60 odd years.
Yeah.
So what is the future of India-Pakistan relationship, given that there is no way forward at this point in time?
You see, our minimum objective is that the tension should not increase, the line of control should remain peaceful, and some CBMs which are in progress can continue, people-to-people contact, some border trade, some trade across Kashmir, and coming and going of people, delegations, etc. So this way, the present normal relationship would not become worse and tensions would not increase. And our effort is that if dialogue begins, we can make much faster progress in terms of resolving some of the issues and move forward much faster.
Earlier this year, Pakistan said that it had captured a suspected Indian spy from Balochistan who was operating out of Iran. This happened during the Iranian President Rouhani's visit and dialogue with Pakistan. Pakistan demanding that Iran do more on its territory against alleged Indian spying or spying rings on Pakistan. How is that relationship affected, or what has happened there?
Well, I don't think Iran-Pakistan relations are affected by that incident. I mean, obviously they have assured us that they will never allow their territory to be used against Pakistan. And at the same time, the spy who was working in Charbagh in Iran and infiltrated here has given us a chance to have more elaborate arrangements to see the movement across the border, and we are in discussions of how the Pakistan and Iran border should also be managed better so that there is no such infiltration. But the bigger issue is the RAW's activities in Balochistan and elsewhere. So that we are investigating to see what kind of a network it is, because it's not just an individual, it's a network.
Have you raised these concerns with India, and what do they say?
Of course, we have shared with them.
They deny these.
Well, they say obviously nobody accepts spies ownership, but I think they have accepted that he is an Indian national. But once our investigation is complete, then we will project it internationally. And this is also makes the whole dialogue on terrorism, which India is insisting on, a more balanced dialogue, because we will put what they are doing on the table and they can put what we are doing on the table, and I hope on this we will make progress, because we believe that terrorism is a common threat to both of us and we should not blame just the other side that Pakistan is promoting terrorism.
And the military is 100% on the side that it wants peaceful relations with India, but it wants peaceful relations on an equal basis. Equal
and dignity, and this we also want the same, because you see, India is the larger country and they want to sort of show that they are in South Asia a dominant power. We accept that, but it has to be a basis of equality and dignity and sovereignty. And I think they have realized now that Pakistan cannot compromise in its basic principles, and interstate relations are dictated by such principles.
Afghanistan, you personally and your government has invested immense resources, immense time to bring the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government back to the negotiating table as part of a reconciliation process. Just a few weeks ago, the Afghan Taliban announced that it was launching a spring offensive in that country. What is Pakistan's position? How much does Pakistan control the Afghan Taliban, and what can it do to bring stability to Afghanistan?
Pakistan has been very sincerely trying to help to the extent possible of creating some kind of dialogue process, because we do not control the Taliban, but we have some influence on them in some context from historical times. And we
still have some influence.
Context, I mean influence in the sense that some groups may listen to us. But in July last year, 7th of July, we had a meeting in Murray, which went very well, and we were hopeful now that this process will continue. But detractors of the dialogue disrupted the process by announcing Mullah Omar's death just 2 days before the 31st July meeting was scheduled. And that was a major setback, because now Mullah Omar having gone, who represents the Taliban? So this was the one major factor, that Taliban was not united. Even in Afghanistan at that time, there was no major consensus of whether we should talk to the Taliban. Some groups were saying they are terrorists, why should we talk to them? And thirdly, the international community also was, not sure which way to go. So in the last few months, I think after the Heart of Asia and the Quadrilateral Group was formed, we have succeeded in making progress on all three. Now there is much greater consensus within Afghanistan that dialogue is the only answer. For the last 15 years, ISAF forces and everybody has been trying
But there's a lot of apprehension as well to this alleged role that Pakistan is playing, that the allegations that the Afghan parts of the Afghan leadership make, that Pakistan says one thing, that it wants peace in Afghanistan, but its actions betray its real motives, with suicide attacks in Afghan cities, with offensives in Helmand. So how does that play out?
I think these are legacies of the past disconnect, because in the past there was a dominant theme that everything goes wrong in Afghanistan is because of Pakistan, and the perception was that Pakistan has been supporting Taliban. So the big change in our relationship with Afghanistan came in 2013 and then 2014, when we convinced them that we have a policy of non-interference. We are not in favor of any group taking power by force, and we want to promote dialogue. So these detractors who are using this argument from the past, saying, why would Pakistan launch suicide attack in Afghanistan? There has to be some motivation, some justification of what we are doing.
Well, they say that Pakistan supports elements like the Afghan Taliban that then go on to launch suicide attacks, simultaneously to promoting this peace process.
To do what? I mean, the question is...
For leverage.
But leverage for those people who are a threat to us. We are convinced that if Taliban come to power by force, it is not good for the security of Pakistan, because they will then join hands with other groups which want to destabilize Pakistan and then be bad for us.
So the Afghan Taliban is also a threat to Pakistan?
No, we are saying the Afghan Taliban are Afghans' responsibility. We can't fight them on our territory. But we would not allow our territory to be used against Afghanistan. So these are the three elements of our policy. Non-interference, we would not allow our territory to be used, and Afghan enemies are our enemies. So in that sense, we can't fight their war on our soil, but we won't allow our soil to be used. And that's why after operations Arbiyaz, their infrastructure is totally destroyed. They can't operate from here. There may be individuals scattered around who are trying to cross, because now we are doing border management so that nobody can cross across the border. So I think majority of people now accept Pakistan's sincerity, but there are some elements, who are detractors, I would call them, and they still play the old tune. But I think majority of independent observers, American observers, others groups, they are convinced that Pakistan is sincerely promoting peace, but our ability to actually not only bring them to the conference table, but to achieve a settlement is somewhat limited, because it's essentially an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led process. It is the Afghan government and the Taliban who have to negotiate. We and the China and America, which are part of the Quadrilateral Group, can only facilitate them to come together. But in my view, the ultimate peace will depend partly on the ground situation. And if with the ISAF support, they are able to hold the ground and not lose too much territory in the coming weeks, then Taliban will probably be forced to think about the dialogue option. Secondly, what kind of a settlement can come out? Because obviously they won't just come disarm and say, sorry, we have made a mistake and we are here to talk. I think they would like to have whatever sort of sharing of power or responsibility. So that will take time. It will not come out immediately, but Afghan government has to decide what can they offer them. And thirdly, I think the international community, and I've never seen such consensus on any other issue than this, that everybody wants Afghanistan to become peaceful. Not a single country in the world, no matter which bloc, Islamic, Soviet, Europe, America, want this war to go on. So I think this is a very strong pressure on the groups to come together. So we are still hopeful that some discussions can start, but as I said, it will depend partly on the ground situation and partly what Afghanistan can offer them.
Partly on the ground situation and partly how the Afghan Taliban react and the cards that they play.
Partly that, because they are also, not a single group. Some are more extremists, want to fight on, and others are more moderate. They know okay, Afghan nation has suffered so much. The general perception is that they may gain a little territory here and there. They cannot overrun Afghanistan anymore. But their ability to carry on insurgency for an indefinite period is there. And so people of Afghanistan will go on suffering. I mean, this is also something, which has to be realized, that ultimately Afghan people need peace. And if this is what they realize and they want to serve their own people, then they have to come to some kind of terms.
Last year, the Chinese premier came to Pakistan and started what is now the Pak-China Economic Corridor, the CPEC. About $50 billion worth of investments will come into Pakistan to create this corridor linking Xinjiang in China to Gwadar in Pakistan. There's been some controversy around that, but what is Pakistan hoping to achieve with China's involvement in the CPEC? What does it see in the next decade happen inside Pakistan?
This upgraded relationship to a much higher strategic level and in terms of much deeper economic interaction in terms of investment. And the total, and as you know, if Pakistan is trying to get $1 billion investment from abroad or from IMF or even as loans, it takes us years, and look at the number of conditionalities. And here they promise $46 billion in 5-7 years, and almost $30 billion out of that is power sector, in which Chinese companies will invest in power projects in Pakistan, coal-based, gas-based, solar, hydro, and then sell the electricity to Pakistan. So this level of investment, even if it takes 5-7 years, 4-5 billion a year, and then 6 billion a year, is a game changer for us, because this will change our investment GDP ratio, and our growth rate, which is stuck at 4.5%, can go to 6%. Then the infrastructure it builds, both the road connectivity, the rail connectivity, as well as the fiber optics connectivity, will create opportunities for investment in manufacturing and all other things. And this will also open up an area which is not so developed and slightly less developed right now. So it's a multidimensional something which is not an end in itself, but preparing the ground for much larger investment. So right now, because of the security situation, our investment ratio had declined from 20% in the early 90s and then 16% in the early 2000s to almost 13-14% of GDP. So you can only get a growth rate of 4%. This will push back our investment GDP ratio to 18, 19, and so we'll start getting 6-7% growth rate, which is critical for us to solve our unemployment problem, solve our poverty problem. So that's why people call it a game changer. And I think the manner in which they implement these projects on a timely basis, the terms on which they provide even loans, some of it is investment, some of it is loans, are very reasonable and low cost. And finally, the whole dynamics and chemistry of people-to-people contact that it involves.
You are in Turkey, Istanbul, to attend the OIC summit. You're representing Pakistan. So is the President of Pakistan. The summit is being held amid a variety of issues in the Middle East. Syria is one of them. Yemen is another. The conflict in the occupied territories of Palestine is another. What is Pakistan's position on all these issues, specifically Syria and Yemen?
See, Muslim world is in a very serious crisis right now, because all the trouble spots in this part, you can see, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Syria, whether it's Libya, whether it is Lebanon, whether it's Yemen, are Islamic countries. And gradually it has also acquired a sectarian dimension in some way, because some are supported by Iran, some are supported by Saudi Arabia, and the Yemen conflict particularly, then before that in Bahrain something like this happens, in Syrian situation also. So this is not at all good for the Muslim Ummah, and many speakers yesterday in the foreign ministers meeting all wanted greater unity in the Islamic world and a collective effort to meet common challenges rather than magnify differences among them. So I think that in both these major crises, Yemen and Syria, if there is some effort to achieve a degree of cooperation that resolve the present conflict between them and all the countries cooperate, then it will also help to eliminate the underlying causes of disunity among the Islamic countries. And on Syria, of course, the differences are much sharper, because big powers are also involved in a big way, Russia and America in Syria. In Yemen, it is the regional powers which are basically involved. And now some dialogue has started on Yemen. Ceasefire has also been agreed upon. Let's hope that these two issues, which are the sort of manifestation of the crisis which Islamic world is facing, will at least get diffused, if not totally resolved, for the Muslim Ummah to make.
So that's the recommendation that Pakistan as a state and its foreign policy will give to Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Yes, in January 18th and 19th January, our Prime Minister and the Army Chief both went to Saudi Arabia on the 18th January and then Iran on the 19th January to convey the same message, that right now when we face so many common threats, the need for unity in the Muslim Ummah is much greater. And therefore, while basic differences may take time to resolve, at least some cooperation on the burning issues, geopolitical issues like Yemen and Syria, would help to improve the situation.
Sartaj, Aziz, thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure, sir.
Thank you.